The conversation around the decolonization of the curriculum continues. You'd remember that this was one of the demands during the Fees Must Fall protests by the students. There have been various views on how this is to unfold, and there are now calls by business students who want to see their own industry superheroes featured in their syllabus. Let's talk about the significance of this now and speak to Professor Willie Chinyamurindi, who is with the University of Forte's Business Management Department. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time. I mean, before we even get into the business syllabus and what some of the students are saying there, this has been a journey over time since we heard from the students who were demanding that, South Africa should start considering the decolonization of its curriculum. Would you say we've made movements in that regard?
Thank you very much for having me. And I think we have made movements because some of the people who are now calling for the decolonization projects to take more center stage in our classrooms are the lecturers themselves, who are also realizing that it can't be business as usual for us to be teaching the same things over and over again and hoping that we can impact some form of a change to the students and subsequently the community that we are trying to serve. So in answer to your question, I think there is a growing movement that is happening where not just the students, lecturers, stakeholders in higher education are starting to really see the benefit of this decolonial tide and the potential benefit it has in terms of assisting our situation in this current state.
Yeah, and let's talk about this call by some business students who say they want their own industry heroes to be included in their curriculum, and talking about the fact that for them, this is going to be something that is a bit more relatable. How significant is it?
Yeah, so it can't be normal that in an African classroom that seeks to impart knowledge, skills to students, African students for that matter, that students are not aware of contextual issues that are surrounding their scenarios and their context. I'll give you an example. If you walk into a classroom in Empangeni, in Limpopo, in Venda, in Alice, we need to find some form of relatable content in which the students can see the linkage between what is being taught and the context in which they belong to. So I often give an example to my students that it's not enough for us to learn about Richard Branson and his Virgin brand while we are not learning about the local entrepreneur who is in Alice, who is in Dimbaza, who is in King Williamstown, who is in East London, who has much acclaim and a stake to encouraging or having their life skills, life stories shared to the greater community as much as any other entrepreneur across the whole who we can use as an example. So we are not calling away for some of the heroes that which I call them in the paper, but actually calling for the entrance of new heroes, those township entrepreneurs who are trying day and night to have a way to make a living in this very harsh economy that we're in. And what we're then arguing is that this could be a possible angle and a panacea to actually encouraging our students to have relatable superheroes and their stories in enacting change for them.
Listening to what you're saying, then I suppose it also takes the ball back also to the lecturer's court, because they also need to reimagine how they're teaching some of their students as well, because around them, there could be some of these heroes you are talking about who've been resilient in the face of rolling blackouts, in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, the economy that is making so many demands on their businesses as well. So the lecturers also need to look at themselves here.
Yes, and I think it's looking at ourselves as well. Are we part of the solution? Are we part of the change agents that we are trying to enact in our students? And it really boils down to intentionality, because we determine what our students learn. And if we are going to determine what our students learn, then we need to be a little bit more intentional and deliberate to go out there and look for these stories and document these stories and have these stories out there so that they can be shared by people around us, even for facilitation and training, but importantly, we ourselves are creating the content in which our students can learn from and obviously be able to relate with in terms of hopefully raising the next generation of business personnel in the country.
So do you think, though, that there is an effort to then be able to look, deliberately for some of these success stories to unearth them so that they find their way then into the classroom?
There definitely is a latitude and a platform through which this can happen. For instance, I'll give you as an example with the SABC. There is an entrepreneurship feature that happens on some of your programs. Nothing stops our lecturers from taking some of this content and bringing them into the classroom. So it's not just enough that we regurgitate and bring in that old traditional, the fundamentals of the disciplines that we train our students in. But there's also this intentionality, which I call it, to actually then invite even captains of industry to say, please come and feature as a guest lecturer in my classroom and share about your experiences. We've started using some of these techniques in some of our classrooms where we bring people from industry to come and share their experiencing. And what we're trying to bridge really is the gap between what is the theory is teaching the students and what is happening in practice. But we bring in a little bit of a flavor in that the students can then have some form of relatable content, stories they relate with and they can identify with, and hopefully encourage them to be positive agents in their communities.
And relatability is quite important. And, as you mentioned there, that SMM is on point, show with my colleague Diabo is certainly unearthing some inspirational stories of, some South Africans who are doing amazing things. So let's see then if the classroom does change, because as you say, relatable content goes a very long way towards inspiring some of the students. Prof, thank you so much for your time this evening. We do appreciate it. That is Professor Willie Chinyamurindi, who is with the University of Hare Business Management Department.